Okay, then members, let's end first technical session. Roopa ma'am is waiting for addressing all of us for the next topic on diversity in professional representation, women in power, politics and decision making. We welcome you, Roopa Venkatesh ma'am, for second session.
Thank you.
Members, it's a privilege to have Roopa Venkatesh with us and to give a very brief introduction. She's a unique combination of chartered accountant, qualified HR expert, certified ISO auditor, and accomplished author and well-knowledge speaker. Our women programs doesn't go without madam's presence. So prior to co-founding T8, Roopa held senior management positions in various industry segments, straddling different roles and functions. She has authored also many books on varied subjects like Success Environment, Living an Inspired Life, Management Principles from Indian Epics. And also as an HR, she helps companies recruit talent and manage them. She is also a very active consultant, helping set up various HR processes in companies in various geographies. She founded T8 International and managed the India Support and Research and Development Center of T8, based out of Bangalore. With this very brief introduction, before that, members, she's also recently been given a place in the prestigious Limca Book of Records, being the author of Play on Cancer, written, directed, and acted by cancer survivors. With this very brief introduction, I wholeheartedly welcome you, ma'am, for today's program.
Thank you, Divya. I hope I'm audible to everyone. I know initially we've had issues about maybe an echo or something, but I hope all those problems are now behind us. Thank you, Bangalore branch, for having a women's conference. For a long time, I used to keep saying there is no need for a women's conference. Why do you want to have a women's conference? A professional is a professional is a professional. Where is the question of gender when you're talking of professionalism? But as the years have progressed and as I have seen more of the world, I think it's fair to have a women's conference to discuss some subjects which both men and women need to be aware of. And I hope to be able to share some of it with you. So I will see whether I can share the details with you all. Let me. Is this working? Are you able to see my screen? Okay, and so we will talk about diversity, women in power, politics, and decision making. It's a very vast subject, if you will ask me. But I'm trying to segue power, politics, and decision making into one box, if you will, because decisions are made by women in power, whether or not they are in politics, even if they are in business, even if they are in other areas of influence. Now, this is such a wonderful tapestry where all the threads are of equal value, no matter where their color of placement. Because if you take out one thread from this, you will find that it is not complete. It is not looking as good as it is now. So every person, every gender, every resource adds their own value to every tapestry. Now, just quickly, I just wanted to lead you through the different kinds of diversity. Diversity doesn't necessarily mean gender diversity. There are diversities in age, different kinds, ages of people working in organizations can cause challenges for managers. Whether it is religion, whether it's racial or ethnic or cultural diversity, or disability diversity, these are all various areas which managers have to be sensitive about. Ironically, most of our education does not address any of these areas specifically as to how you can address these kind of challenges. Of course, as far as we are concerned, for the purposes of this session, I will be looking and talking about gender diversity, as in men and women. Now, I'm afraid that many of you, many of us, tend to think of men versus women. But I like to believe that I come from an angle of men and women. It is not men versus women. Men bring certain risks, certain traits, certain behavioral aspects, which is a part of that psyche. Women also have that. Now, how we can use it to advantage, that is what I think all of us should learn. So if we look at business, we are looking at about 47.2% of the working population who are women. So it is less than 50% for various reasons. And of this, only 20%, so less than 50% of them come to management positions. Less than 50% of them come to senior management positions. And much lesser than that come to top management positions. So the question I think we should all ask ourselves is, what happened along the way? Why is it that women don't get to the top? Okay. There are multiple reasons. And the reasons which I am putting here are not in any order of preference or righteousness, but because these were the top answers we got when we ran a survey, part of the survey, of a very large study of companies in India and in the UK. One of the reasons was the promoters, the ones who promote the women or the employees to the next position. They are usually men, so they understand men, so they promote men. So women tend to get left behind. The second reason was women don't seek power, they seek responsibility. Now, this is a very interesting study, and I will refer to it again a little later, is that when you ask, this comes from personal experience. When I used to ask my female managers, where do you see yourself in the next 2 to 3 years? How would you like to grow in the organization? Typical question in an appraisal conversation. Most women would say, I would like to have more responsibility. And most of my male managers would say, I would like to have more power. They are both looking for the same thing. They want to get to the next level of promotion. But a male person looks at it from a position of power. A woman looks at it from a position of responsibility. Again, please note that I'm not saying that one is better or worse. This is not about right and wrong. This is about how they think. The third reason is men are promoted for potential and women are promoted for performance. This is highly unfair, but that is what it is. If men can prove or men can talk about how they will improve their performance in the next quarter, next 2 quarters, next year, they are being promoted. Whereas women are being told, oh, you did not perform last year, you did not meet your target last year, so therefore I cannot promote. This is a double standard for promoting men and women. This is something which all of the audience, men and women, should really pay attention to. that when you are doing the appraisal of your staff, when you are being appraised by your senior, this may be one of the aspects you want to be aware of. Women undersell themselves. This is like a cliche. Women don't want to stand up to be counted. I will give you an example for this, where women want to be recognized and selected, whereas men are aggressive and are willing to be elected. I had a very unique situation where one lady candidate came to me and said, look here, Rupa, many of my friends are telling that I should stand for election for a certain position. So I asked her, what do you want to do? I don't know. Will I be able to do it? I'd like to, but so I, considering I have been a student of behavioral dynamics for a while now, I understood that this is not a case of low self-esteem. This is not a case of self-doubt. This is not a case of she doesn't know what she wants. This is a case of a woman trying to express in her own way that she wants to be selected and not necessarily stand up and say, I'm the best, please select me or please elect me. Ironically, in the same period, there was another case where a gentleman, he approached me and he said, oh, by the way, Rupa, I have decided to stand for election. Can you give me some hints? Same thing, different approach. And I was blown away as to how or why men and women approach the same issue very differently. So this is again not about right and wrong. It is about the way men and women think. Now, talking about think, I share with you one more example. At one time, I used to have about 7 managers report to me from various geographies. Some were men, some were women. Invariably, whenever I gave them a proposal saying, what do you think we should do about it? My male managers would say, Rupa, I think that if we were to invest a little more than you have suggested, this will really work out. The female managers come to me and say, Rupa, I feel that if we were to throw a little more money at this project, I think it will work. It's the same thing. But one comes from a position of think, one comes from a position of feel. So there is a way, a different way to approach for any aspect, whether it is in the professional world or in decision making. So it's important to understand these differences. If you look at the Standard & Poor 500 companies research, which was considered one of their primary researches, of the 500 companies, 150 companies did not have any female directors. Of the ones that had more than 2 female directors, the top line improved by 22%. And PAT increased by 27%. Now, isn't this reason enough to convince us of the need to create gender diversity at the workplace? I can't see any more reason. Everyone wants their profits to improve, their top line to improve, their business to do well. And if one of the easiest ways to do it is to have women employees in senior decision-making, policy-making positions, then we should be doing this. Okay. So I have realized how important it is to understand what facts lie behind the stats. Now, we talk about male traits. Now, please forgive me. I am not saying that all men have these traits. I am not saying that having these traits make them men. I am saying that a large number of men display many of these traits in more measure than women. If you take a equal sample size of 100 men and 100 women, you will find more men who are aggressive as compared to women. This doesn't mean women don't have aggression or that they are not ambitious or that they are not competitive. That is not the point. The point is, in terms of general uh, data, this is one thing which I think we should all be aware of. Men are displaying these kind of characteristics, whereas let's look at the female traits. They are better at multitasking. They are better at communication. They have a better skill in persuasion, caregiving and nurturing. They are more collaborative. Now, collaborative, I remember a very interesting example which struck me in the head. Five women were sitting around drinking coffee at a restaurant. One of them got up and said, "Oh, I'm going to the ladies. Anyone wants to join?" And the two women got up and they all went to the washroom. I can't imagine men doing this. This is a natural way when women behave like this. And there's nothing wrong or right about it. It is the way they are. They are collaborative. They are inclusive. They are non-confrontational. Now, why is understanding these male and female traits important? Okay, this is, I think, very important for us to understand so that we can correlate, we can guide the transaction results at workplaces such that the company or the organization or the deal or the transaction benefits. That is the purpose. This is not about being manipulative. This is not about setting up men against women or women against men. That's not the point at all. How can we all benefit? Now, I would like to bring your attention to this new business paradigm because I recently had a conversation and one of a very senior business person, he was smiling, almost smirking at some of the things about, women in leadership and all that. So I asked him, "Why are you smiling?" His response was very much based on his own personal experience. He says, "Rupa, I have been running an industry for a very long time. Brick and mortar industry. They manufacture something in engineering. Till now, we never had women in the workplace. Why are you now saying that you should have women, then you'll have this, and then you'll have that?" We were very happy when there were no women in the workplace. At that time, I did not have to provide security. I did not have to provide a separate place for women to eat. I did not have to provide a changing place for the women. I did not have to ensure that there was a creche available for the children of my employees, women employees. I didn't have to do all this. And life was going good. I was doing very good business. So then I shared with him some of these details, which is that now the business is in a new paradigm. We are operating the same businesses or similar businesses or businesses in general, but now businesses are interdependent. Earlier, they worked like silos and they did not have any cross-linking much between them, but now they do. Differentiation has replaced competition. Okay. Now, differentiation means that you have to communicate why your product, your service, your offering is better than somebody else's. For that, you need persuasion skills, you need communication skills, which is a natural for women. So if you have a woman employee leading that activity, assuming that skills are all there, we are not saying that just you put a plonker woman into that role, she will deliver the goods. No, I'm assuming that there's the basic skill level is all addressed. Then the way the women communicate will help in creating this value. Human resources are now very, very important, very valued. Not that they were not valued before. I'm not saying that 30, 40 years before in industry, especially in India, there was no value for human resources. There was, but their value was limited. Somebody was an unskilled or a semi-skilled resource, and that's what he or she was. So there was no confusion, so to speak. But now human resources are so scarce and therefore so valuable that every resource has to do multiple things. So multitasking, communication has become very, very crucial. So now there are communication needs which earlier wasn't there. Now we have communication department who cater to communication internally. Forget about the outside world. What you need to communicate to the outside world is also communication, but there is internal communication, which was not a big focus earlier. Earlier, the senior manager wrote out a memo, and that memo went to everybody, and that's what whatever he said was written in stone. However, now it is not so because there are multiple stakeholders in every decision. There are multiple areas where we need to look at and address, and therefore communication is becoming increasingly important and complex. Persuasive and negotiation skills have become very crucial. They become very crucial because resources are absolutely scarce, and you have to now convince people to stay with you. You cannot take them for granted. Today in the IT sector, the employees are working with you because they are not working elsewhere. Not because they are desperately in need of your job. The whole nature of demand and supply has changed, which means that you need more persuasion skills, more negotiation skills, more understanding, better communication. And all these are inbuilt skills for women, or it comes more naturally to women. So why wouldn't you take a ready-made product when instead of having to invent the whole wheel again? Okay, so scarce resources need multitasking. As far as multitasking is concerned, I do remember that earlier there used to be a secretary for every manager. Then came a time when there was something called a group secretary. That secretary used to normally be a lady, and she would be the one who took care of all the correspondence. So there was dictation and correction and then sending of the correspondence. Nowadays, the manager, if he wants to communicate something to somebody, he's got to type it himself. So he or she is doing multitasking. He is clacking away at his computer and sending out emails, sending out details, which earlier was believed that somebody else would take care of. So the way business is being done is changed. So who is doing that business also needs to change. I mean, it's neuroscience. Now let's look at women in power and politics. as of September 1st, 2021, that means really latest, there are 26 women serving as heads of state or government. Very good. You feel like clapping. But then when you read that there are 195 countries, of which only 26 countries have heads of state as women, you realize that the next statement is also quite true, that at the current rate, gender equality will take another 130 years. I'm sure I'm not going to be alive for another 130 years. I suspect many of the people in the audience may also not survive for another 130 years. So we've got to do something to fast track this entire activity. I know many of you are sitting there and thinking that, why do I need to know all this? But you need to know all this simply because if you understand how the relationship or how the minds of different genders work, then going to work or being employed or employing people or getting your work done in a better manner will become so much more easier. I know it is not as tangible as the previous speaker who spoke about how to get MSME loans, how to get different kinds of products from the banks or from the non-banking financial institutions or from other sources. It is maybe not as tangible, but this is absolutely crucial to survival. So let's look at women and power, not women in power. Dr. Claude Beaufort was one of the very senior psychoanalysts and behavioral scientists we've had. And he did this very huge survey. And he was the one who pointed out that women use the word responsibility instead of the word power. So men would stand up and say, I want more power. That doesn't mean that they are arrogant. It doesn't mean that they will become dictatorial. It only means that for them, when they have the power, they have the ability to change things. However, women look at it differently. They say that if you give me the responsibility, because I am responsible to ensure that my job is done, I will ensure that everybody benefits and therefore the goal is achieved. The result will still be the same. But the way we approach, the attitude, the perspective is completely different. And this is very interesting, and I've seen it at work. So I just wanted to spend just 2 slides on panchayats. Now you may think, who wants to talk about panchayats? Why are professional chartered accountants being told about panchayats? Very honestly, I speak for myself that in general, I do not talk to ministers, policy makers, decision drivers in the top management or top areas of government. Who do I talk to? I talk to the local corporator. I talk to the ward committee members, and that is where the panchayat Raj comes in. And I want this to function so that they can feed the questions up to the top so that there will be a change which is everlasting, which will last for years and years in a society as complex as the Indian society. Currently, there's a reservation of 33% for women under the Panchayat Raj Act. I know many of us, me included, said that, oh God, they take these women, they plonk them in those seats. But actually, the decisions are made by the men who sit behind them in the Panchayat meetings. And they are the ones who talk about what decisions should be made, who should be given the liquor card, TECA, contract for liquor, selling of liquor, what should be the allocation of funds. This is what men decide. I've seen where people have, women are sitting at the table, but right behind them is another chair on which there's a man sitting, often the spouse or the brother or the father. And the standard excuse is that, oh, she doesn't know what she's telling, she's not educated, she's not capable, and women were being dismissed. So there were women in positions of power in politics, in a place where decisions were made, yet they were not being allowed to do anything. However, in the last few years, we have seen a paradigm change. Today, women sit there, no men are allowed. Their persons are not allowed to come into the meeting. The woman stands up, and maybe even in the local language, she is the one who takes the decision. She is the one who prepares the report. She is the one who shares the presentation. And it's very interesting to see. The best part is that they focus on hitherto unaddressed subjects, like liquor, stopping sale of liquor in the village beyond a certain time, beyond a certain period. During a certain period, when during festival period, no sale of liquor. All this, women are being able to impose. Water, better management of water resources, whether it is ponds, lakes, rejuvenation, etc. Fodder, creating grasslands. So before dismissing women and their inability to make independent decisions, we need to give them time, support, and education. They can perform just as well, maybe even better than men. Well, we don't know, time will tell. Again, I told you this is not about man bashing. This is very interesting, and I'm sure many of you will agree. Those of you who come from a rural background, those of you who come from villages, who have some roots in the villages, will possibly resonate with this, that the research has shown that in case of, for example, water projects, there were more water projects taken up, 62% more better water projects taken up, where there were women-led councils, women-led panchayats, as compared to men-led panchayats. Corruption levels was 70% less. That doesn't mean women are not corrupt or women are holier than thou and things like that. That's not what I'm trying to say. But in general, women like to get the things done. And if there is corruption, they find a way to reduce it or maybe less indulgent in the corruption areas. Even in Norway. So don't think that this is only related to India. In Norway, there was a study conducted, again, a very large study, which showed that there is a direct relationship between the presence of women in municipal councils and children coverages. Children's health coverage, children attending schools, all this improved drastically wherever there were women-led councils. This is again, I borrow from Beaufort, that while men are looking about for themselves, their moral decisions are based on justice perspective. So they will look at is it just, is it right, is it fair? Conversely, you will find that when women make their decisions, they will come from a perspective of, will it help a large number of people? Will more women in my group be impacted by this? Will the children benefit? Will children's health improve by making this particular decision? And therefore, when women are making decisions, it impacts large communities. Neuroscience, so if you go, let's say, okay, this is the social behavior side. There is also the scientific side as to how men and women work. Neuroscience has uncovered evidence that when the pressure is on, women bring unique strengths to decision making. When they are put in a position of pressure, they have to make the decision now, or you have to make this decision quickly. Otherwise, we lose an opportunity, or we will lose something, or this is maybe the impact. Women bring unique strengths. And this has been very well recorded, very well studied. And it's very interesting to see that more frequent decision making by women improves vastly their ability to make better and more effective decisions. So, which again builds the case that we should have more women in decision making decision making positions, such that more and more decisions are made, and therefore they will improve the quality of that decision making. However, the caveat was that there is only one area, which is the military area, where women did not perform. When women were faced with warlike situations, their ability to make decisions, impacting decisions, was greatly compromised. So they make less risky decisions under warlike situations, which is not necessarily good for a warlike situation. When women become leaders and earning members, of course, they are contributing to family, to children, and last of all, themselves. So women empowerment has meant better communities. Men empowerment has meant better families. It's not that men don't do anything for their family. Of course they do. When they make a decision at the rural level, or even at the slightly higher level, the benefit which they gain, they first take it back to their families. They ensure that the children go to a better school. They ensure that they have a better house to live in. They ensure that they save something for a rainy day. This all impacts their family. Very good. But when women are making these decisions, women will ensure that will try to understand how I can do something that my whole community will benefit. So, better communities versus better families. This is the kind of trade-off between men and women's decision making. I come to the last couple of slides. I know I have been running through the slides because I'm desperately trying to catch up on time. I know I started about half an hour late. Unfortunately, I feel very sad for those of you who might have had a long day and then have to sit through all this. But I assume all of you are still awake. So what can I do? Is that if that is what you're thinking, what you can do is encourage more women at the workplace. Whether you are an employer or an employee, whether you are doing appraisals or whether you're doing promotions, you should be sympathetic to the idea of diversity. Not because women should be given a little more push, women should, there should be more women in the workplace. That's not the point. The point is, you should understand that there are great benefits of having gender diversity at the workplace. And therefore, the cost of diversity, we must not forget, we are all accountants. There is a cost of diversity. There is no doubt about it. If you employ women, you have to ensure that there is better security if they are working late. Yes, if you have women and they have to travel, then you have to possibly make a few more arrangements. These are all parts. Which they all come with a cost. If you have large number of women employees, you may not need to have a creche where they can come and leave their children. You may have to give time off to the women to go and see their children in the creche. You may have to take up various measures to ensure that these women are cared for. Yes, there is a cost, but the benefits far outweigh the cost, and therefore you must want to encourage more women, have better diversity at your workplace. Be there for the women when they need help in terms of managing office politics. this is a more human thing to do because women need a little support. Just say, don't worry, I'm there. That helps them to overcome the basic hurdles, which I guess every organization has. I used to head a 20,000 man company, and I know what kind of politics happens at every different level. So I'm not naive. So I know that there are all kinds of challenges. But the best thing you can do is try to provide a level playing field for all the employees. Okay. What more can you do? You can work towards getting more women into teams as they bring different skills. One, they bring different skills. And I can assure you that you would have all noticed if there are women in the team, there is less use of foul language, there is less swanning off, there is less bickering amongst the team members. These are natural results of having a mixed team. So you should consciously ensure that you have the right kind of mix in different teams. Get your organization to participate in diversity conversations. You must encourage, like you have coffee with Karan, you can have diversity conversations. What it means to you, what it means to somebody else. Maybe the men have a clip saying women are unnecessarily being promoted. Women are being given special status. Why are you making a discrimination? Address these issues. Once they get addressed, then there is very less gossip. There is very less snide remarks. And that creates a very healthy atmosphere to work in. At the home front, of course, I'm sure many of you or every person of you is doing this. Encourage your sons to take equal part in house management. And this, I think, is very crucial that women and girls are not the problem, but part of the solution. Once we can begin to accept this, I think much in this world will change. So you can create the environment you want your spouse, your daughter-in-law to work in. And nothing works unless you do. So knowing is not doing. Only doing is doing. That is considered one of the very important mantras of life. And I strongly believe in that. And I have got this pasted at my residence saying nothing, just knowing is not enough. Knowing is not enough. Only doing is doing. I know I have run through the presentation. I'm not sure. Looks like the train driver wanted a piece of the consultation. So I'd like to thank you for your patience, and I'd like to thank the chairman of branch for thinking about a women's conference. And just before I end, I want to leave you with one story as to why I think one day we will have a time when there will be no women's conferences, and that day will come, and that day will be when I believe once Ravana went to Kailas to meet Shiva. He was a great Shiva devotee. So when he was going there, he saw Parvati, and Parvati is very beautiful. So he fell in love with her, and he wanted Parvati for himself. So he went to Shiva. Shiva said, "What do you want?" He says, "I want Parvati." So Shiva said, "Very good. Go and ask her. If she's willing, please take her." And Nandi and Veerbhadra got very angry with Shiva, saying, "How can you do this? She is your wife. You cannot just give away your wife to somebody." He said, "No, that is not the point. If he had asked for my tiger skin, if he had asked for my kamandala, then that was my property. I would have said yes or no. My wife is not my property. She is an individual. She has a mind of her own. And if she decides that she would be happier living with him, then she's happy to go. Why should I stop her?" The day we have all men behaving like Shiva, I think we will not need a women's CA conference. We will just have a conference. But till then, let's enjoy the women's conferences. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the session. If you have any questions, you can post them to me.
As of now, no questions, ma'am. Have you received any questions in your chat box?
There is one person, Kusuma Devi, who has not a question, but a very interesting thing that she has a large number of women working with her. So she has a gender diversity issue because the men are obviously in minority. Enjoy it while the sun lasts. Kusuma Devi, you are in a very envious position. It doesn't happen often. Yeah, that's about it. I don't have any others in my chat list. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. So, members, it's my pleasure indeed to give a formal vote of thanks for first day's Women Conference. Thank you so much, Roopa Venkatesh ma'am, for spending your valuable time and being part of our conference, ma'am. Thank you so much on behalf of all the participants and also on behalf of the entire managing committee. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
I also thank all the members for your active participation. I thank my colleagues in managing committee and also all the staff, especially ITT staff, for making all the arrangements. Thank you so much, all of you. Special thanks to our chief guest and guest of honor of today's program. Thank you so much, madam, for both of you. Thank you so much. So, members, we shall meet tomorrow at 4 o'clock for second day's conference. See you all. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.